Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us to discuss the revised draft tariff and BPM language for the Maximum Import Capability Stabilization and Multi-Year Allocation Stakeholder Initiative. My name is Isabella Nicosia, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the web conference today. I'm also joined on the line by Jordan Pinas, our Senior Counsel, Catalin Mixa and Jeff Billington from Transmission Infrastructure Planning, Ibrahim Rahimi from Regional Transmission North, and Milos Bosanek from Infrastructure and Regulatory Policy. All of the documents that we'll be discussing during today's call are available out on the initiative webpage. We posted those on February 8th, and then comments on the revised draft tariff and BPM language were due yesterday, February 17th. We did receive one set of comments from the 6 cities, and we will address those comments later on today. Today's call is being recorded, and the video file will be available for a limited time on the ISO website. The recording is for informational and convenience purposes only, and any related transcription should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. We will be taking questions throughout the call today, and if you have a question, you can enter the queue at any time by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. I'd just like to remind everyone to please start by introducing yourself before asking your question. So with that, I will pull up the revised draft tariff language, and I will hand it over to Jordan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the second round tariff call on the mixed changes that we're making. Just to kind of recap where we're at right now, we did have that first tariff call where we went through a few substantive issues on the tariff. We appreciate those comments that everybody made. We've made changes based on your initial comments, and we believe we've got a final set of tariff language here that should be ready to go and ready to file very soon. I am going to have Isabella go ahead and jump to the end of the document, which is where the main changes were made in response to stakeholder comments. So it's section 40.4, .6, .2, .2.4. where the major changes were made. I will note that there were some other changes in the rest of the document that were mostly wordsmithing type changes. They're very minor. I don't think there was too much to it. I think they added clarity, and they were based on the stakeholder feedback that we got in the first round. So here at the end of the document, what Isabella has pulled up, we've made some clarifications. And the first substantive change here is at the second to last and last lines of the tariff. And essentially what we've done here is to clarify that we're talking about the year prior to the requested import allocation being given as to when the actual reserve import allocation, when the showing has to happen for the new import allocation. So this is a clarification because we had applicable year in there before, and it just wasn't clear timing-wise how that would work. And here we make it clear that it has to be the year before the requested allocation. The second change that you see here is probably the most substantive change at the top of the next page. What we've done here is in response to stakeholder feedback, we have specified that to qualify for a new import allocation, you need to, a new multi-year import allocation, you have to show that you have a pseudo-tie generating unit or a dynamic resource-specific system resource that is backing it. And this is consistent with what stakeholders asked for and consistent with the PUC policy right now as far as what can qualify for a resource adequacy import. So this is probably the major change that we've made, and we agree with stakeholders that it should be defined in the tariff specifically what can qualify. So we will note that to the extent that there are any changes going forward in the RA enhancements process, we would have to make a change to this section as well in order to expand the list of resources that could qualify for a multi-year MIC allocation. The next set of changes that you see here are related to some language that we had in the tariff originally that was a bit unclear as it referenced to curtailment, and we redefined that term out of the tariff in this section because we're not really talking about curtailment of the resources, but really the way in which we should reduce an LLC's MIC allocation if they have a multi-year MIC allocation that exceeds their load share quantity for future years. So we've just clarified that language there. The next set of changes, initially in the tariff, we had that any change in the contractual terms would result in the loss of status of the new U.S. import allocation or new U.S. import commitment. And we've changed that so that now it refers to a material modification of the electric or operational characteristics in the contract. And that was, again, based on stakeholder comments that we incorporated this change. And then I think that's it as far as the substantive changes go here. I'd like to go ahead and open it up. If there's any questions on this section or any sections of the tariff in Section 40, now would be the time to ask.
As a reminder, you can enter the question queue by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. Adam, will you let us know if anybody joins the queue?
I do see one question on the line. Caller, your line is being unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Carrie Bentley with the Western Power Trading Forum. I had a question about the use of the term branch group level. It's not a defined term, and when I try and correlate the use of branch group with the interties in the documentation on the CAISO website, it's not clear to me exactly what you mean by branch group level or how it will be assigned. I'm wondering if we could define it or somehow coordinate that better with the documentation on interties on the website. Is that clear at all? Happy to restate if that didn't make sense to you guys.
No, I do understand what you're saying there. Callan, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I think that's something we can take back and take a look at, defining that more specifically to the interties. But Callan, I want to let you have an opportunity here as well.
Yeah, so the MIC is actually divided by branch groups. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, we do correlate with certain scheduling points. I'm not sure exactly what intertie are. A branch group is more than one intertie, if I remember right. So I'm not really keen on making new tariff definitions, but if we have to, I guess we can make one.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be helpful. So if you go to like the S&M reference documents and then how you actually trade, it's based on an ITC, and then there are branch groups. But when you assign the MIC, for example, I think you're assigning the MIC. For example, there's the Sylmar AC branch group, but if you connect into Sylmar LA, I don't think that's the same as connecting to Sylmar ITC. And so when you say you can connect with a branch group and then people look at that documentation and then they go and try and get MIC at a place that it's, the CAISO says, no, you can't get that because it's not the exact intertie. So I think it would be helpful to do a definition or clarify.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying is we don't take requests for MIC at any given branch group or point. We give MIC out and we tell people where it is, so we don't take requests where there is nothing available. So I'm not sure technically how much this is influencing anything, but we're willing to think through that and we'll get back to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think it's more influencing things on the development side as people are trying to connect to the CAISO and figure out how to engage in this process, which, it's a lot of steps and it's pretty confusing. So anything that can simplify it, I think is helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the comment.
Question on the line? Sorry for interrupting. I do have another question on the line. Caller, your line is being unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Nick Dahlberg at the CPUC. Just one quick question about the definition of the types of resources that can be used to lock MIC and for the new contract. So I see, as you said, that it's now defined in the tariff as well as the BPM as pseudo-tied and resource-specific dynamically scheduled resources. And so I was just curious. You had mentioned briefly what the process would look like for adding additional resources to that list in the future. And I'm just wondering if you could repeat that. I missed it, so apologize.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I mean, essentially, we have to make a tariff change to this section, and then also to the definition section as well, which we're going to go through. So we would have a stakeholder process to do that.
Right.
Within,
okay.
And make an initiative like this one. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So because I recall, at least a while back that the original thought was to just put it in the BPM and then it would just be a BPM change. But now because it's being put in the tariff, that's a more substantive process. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I have no additional questions in the queue at this time.
Okay. Sounds good. So, Isabella, thanks for bringing up Appendix A. Again, here, the changes we made to Appendix A are just consistent with what we just talked about as defining specifically the resources that can qualify for a multi-year MIC allocation as those pseudo-tied or dynamic resource-specific system resources. So this is just for consistency. We'll take questions on this as well if anybody has any, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of just real quickly say as well that we're not going to go through the BPM sections in detail. That is where 6 cities had some comments on the language that we had there. And at least partially those were based on language that still included that curtailment aspect or terminology that we had in the tariff originally. We will clean that up when we go through the BPM change management process. So I just wanted to note that. We appreciate the catch there. It's a good one. And then I know 6 cities had one question as far as the percentages on the import allocation lock, which Catalin is going to go ahead and address. I think we can go ahead and do that now and then take questions at the end.
Thank you, Jordan. So just to address the 6 cities questions, the BPM language will go to the BPM change management process, so we'll have 2 stakeholder calls through that process. And whatever 6 cities submitted here, we will look at it and try to include it from the beginning in the language before it gets there. That process will go on most likely in the next 2 or 3 months, and you will have another chance, another opportunity for changes to the BPM change management process. 6 cities had a question. Can you please explain the basis for allowing reservation equal to 120% of the highest summer monthly value versus 100% of summer value? So that was basically a compromise between the fact that we wanted to allow resource-specific resources like, pseudo-tied and dynamic schedules, and we also did not want to lock throughout the year too much MIG with contracts that do not apply to the peak periods. So we looked in our NQC list, and when you buy a unit external to the ISO, let's say you buy, if you buy a solar, it's not a problem. It's usually higher in the summer. But if you buy, let's say, a thermal unit, it usually it has a little bit of curve. It's a little higher in the winter. It's a little lower in the summer due to ambient temperature. And we looked at that variation. We wanted to make sure that if you do buy a resource from the outside, you can count it all throughout the year. That same deadband is actually valid for most of the wind, though we did have some questions from stakeholders outside the ISO that wanted that eliminated so they can count any wind. Some of the wind has higher percentages, even above 120% on some of the outer months. So we decided that, it's a good compromise. Almost every resource would fit within the 120% mark that you're trying to buy from outside. Therefore, you can literally count the entire pseudothyroidynamic schedule that you're buying. Yet it does not really lock, too much beyond the summer values. So that's why we come up with this compromise of 120%. So if anybody's buying a resource from the outside that in the winter is more than 120%, they just can't lock that amount. It will be capped at 120% of the summer value. You can get some additional NIC for that through either the year ahead process or the month ahead process, or you can purchase for that 1 month from somebody else who has it if you really want to use the extra megawatts in the optic, but you would not get a lock on that if it's beyond 120% of the higher summer value. Thank you.
Okay, I think that wraps it up from the ISO side. So if there are any other questions that we want to address, we can do that now.
Adam, are there any questions in the queue?
Not currently. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, it is #2 if you wish to ask a question over the line. All right, I'm not seeing any questions in the queue at this time.
Okay. Jordan, did you have anything else to add before we conclude?
Yeah, just that we will, take the question that Carrie asked and see if we can provide some clarity around that, and then we'll be filing a transmittal letter and an updated tariff language shortly, probably by the end of the month here. So that's the update.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. That concludes today's stakeholder call, and have a great rest of your day.